Well, good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I'm Jim with Helios Partnership Success alongside Mr. Brian Juarez
Hi there.
with Partnership Success as well. And we are Helios. We are a web-based paperless provider for HR and business K-12 electronic solutions. And we know schools have a need for fundraising. And there's multiple ways to go about accomplishing this mission. And sometimes this desire for getting those funds that are needed can cause some organizations to think just a bit too far side out the box, frankly. So while everyone is filling up this virtual space, the webinar room, with this in mind, we have a short, funny video to share. All right, so thankfully you're all here today to learn about the funding that's available during COVID-19 for K-12 through the CARES Act and other additional sources. So no one after this webinar should feel compelled to have to think too far outside the box for raising the funds that they need. So, but what does it really look like in this post-COVID-19 world for receiving those funds that K-12 needs? Thankfully, we have today Mr. Brian Juarez with us, who has over 20 years of experience in education. He's been a middle school teacher, education technology specialist, and a national presenter of professional development workshops. So, Brian, please tell us just how are folks getting the funds that they need through the CARES Act and other additional funding sources?
Awesome, Jim. Thank you so much. And just to Jim's horn a little bit, Jim is absolutely amazing. He has some really great videos on YouTube for Helios, so take a look at those. I'm going to turn off my camera just so you can see the presentation, so you don't have to look at us. So great to be with you today. Thank you for taking your Friday morning and spending about 30 minutes with us. What I hope to do today is talk about the CARES Act, just exactly what it is, what you can purchase with it, how some also resources that will be beneficial for you, and talk about charter schools as well. We have some charter schools with us today, so give some resources for those charter schools. I also share some websites with you that I have found very informative as well. You know, as you look around, it's pretty daunting, isn't it, in this COVID world? You know, daunting headlines, schools face nightmare scenario after coronavirus crisis. I even looked at, you know, more headlines this morning just to see, you know, what's going on out there. And the future, as we know, is quite unsure. We're just now, or we have been thinking about what it's going to look like, school year is going to look like this next year. Our budgets, of course, are an issue as well. And so really, you know, things have changed dramatically with the COVID pandemic. As you know, it's at some level of pressure, but honestly, let's be real, folks, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on those budgets. And so there are those gray clouds out there. And really what I hope to do today for you is just paint a little silver lining around those gray clouds, so you can take a look at some funding that can help you help your students be successful with remote learning. These laws were passed. The CARES Act was passed on March 27th. And what's been really nice about the CARES Act is everything has been really fast and direct. As we know, for those who have received even the stimulus checks, those came out really quick. In fact, direct deposit in many accounts or received checks. So everything with the CARES Act has been really, really convenient, really fast. And I'm sure that even with the funding with the schools and portion with the ESSER funds, those will come to you fast as well. We know some funds already have. In fact, one of the assistant superintendents that we work with said that they have received some of those funds already, and that she's bought personal protection equipment. Those were gloves that she bought with that. So there are those funds available. What is the CARES Act? It's $30.75 billion for the Education Stabilization Fund. Now, it would be great if those were all going to all elementary and secondary, but also higher education is in that mix as well. And so the education for elementary, secondary, school emergency relief fund, or ESSER fund, is $13.2 billion, which I said some of that was already given out to you and is broken up a few different ways as well, that $30.75 billion. It's also based on your Title I Part A, so take a look at that because you should be getting a second helping of that from all the research that I have done. That's what it looks like. And some of those funds, the $3 billion or 10%, have gone to the governors to make sure that the continuity of education is taking place. And that was called the GEAR Fund. So they were able to spend that where they needed it most, those the greatest educational needs, to have that continuity of education, to make sure learning was still taking place. Project SERV, I know many of you, if not all of you, have heard of Project SERV before, but Project SERV have received $100 million from those funds. As you know, Project SERV is for traumatic and violent events, and yes, our pandemic would be part of that. Traumatic for so many students who lost their friends and had to study at home without seeing them, social distancing. So you know what, that's been really traumatic for not only us who thrive on being with people, but also especially for our students. And what that does, provides education related services for them with that influx of $100 million. So the ESSER fund has a pretty clear purpose, and that's teachers teach and students learn. What does that learning look like, however? From the research that I've done, the articles I have read, it looks like that has been a real struggle with distance learning. In fact, we were talking to a chief of personnel yesterday, one of our districts here in California, and she said that engagement was way, way low. So they're very, very concerned about that. So really, what do you need in place to make sure that learning is taking place? That's what it comes down to. How is learning taking place? We have received a promise from the federal government as well, saying that they will not micromanage these funds. So you can really spend those funds where you need it most to make sure remote learning is taking place. With that chief personnel we spoke to yesterday, she also said the school year this next year is going to look different. I know from the articles I have read, you're still trying to figure out what that is going to look like. And she said in her district, at least, it's going to be a hybrid. So they may have some students on one day, some on the next day, you know, working at home still, learning at home, distance learning, remote learning is still going to be happening. So what do you need in place to make sure that students can learn? And honestly, that's what the ESSER Fund is all about that remote learning, having web accessibility. I was a middle school teacher. I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, Los Angeles County. 95% of my students did not have internet access at home. I don't know what that looks like, and I'm sure there's still some areas like that. So this ESSER fund is there to make strategic investments and to promote student achievement. My students went to the church, went to YMCA or wherever else they could to use the computers. And that's what it looked like for them. But, well, with COVID, that's not happening. They have to learn in their home. So what is that looking like? And really, it's about long-term improvements in infrastructure and operations, not just short-term, just not tomorrow or next week, but really for the long haul. What is remote learning? What is distance learning going to look like in your district, in your school? And what do you need to make sure that your students are learning and your teachers are teaching. So what can be purchased with this? So broadband connectivity, hotspots. Hotspots are absolutely huge. One of the districts that we work with said that they purchased hotspots for their students with some of the funds that they already received. So of course, with 95% not having the internet, that would have been crucial in the district that I worked in. Also protective equipment, assistive technology, adaptive technology. I read another article this morning in how the special education students are kind of being left behind, or are being left behind, I guess I should say. Spoke to some of my friends who teach special education, severely handicapped. As you know, they need someone with them 24/7. So what is that looking like? What help is needed? What is assistive technology? What adaptive equipment is needed so that they can learn? There's been waivers, which is really nice. This goes under the lack of micromanagement, which is really nice. So so take a look at this. So specific provisions under Title 4A of ESSER have been waived. The requirement for a needs assessment, if you're spending over $30,000, that has been waived. And the cap of use of 15% on technology, that has been waived. Because once again, they want you to put the infrastructure in place so that learning is taking place. So they have removed these waivers so that you can build that infrastructure for the long-term haul. Equity. No matter what conference we go to, all the schools, we hear about equity. And is that happening? As my special education teachers say, it's been a real struggle, especially for those with special needs. So what is that looking like? What do you need to do specifically to help them? Because really, no child should be left behind. All students need to learn, and we need to increase that engagement. And really, with the ESSER funds, it helps you put the infrastructure in place. But we really need to consider what that infrastructure looks like for our special needs students as well. So there, lots of people are meeting right now just to decide and think about how's that going to work. So lots of research in there. You might want to take a look at that online. Some great articles out there. I've talked about a few funds today: the CARE Fund, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, Project SERV, and then, as you know, thank you for getting out the food and lunches to our students. I remember was serving, as a teacher in Los Angeles County, that some of my students did not get fed if they weren't fed at school. There's no food at home. So thank you for being there for them, handing out those lunch packets, and really making sure that our students can eat still and have those nutrition programs in place. So money for that as well. A great resource for you. I know many of you, I'm sure, have seen this, but oese.ed.gov has a lot of great information for you. So go there and get the additional information on the pandemic, on the COVID-19 and what's all taking place in elementary and secondary education. Now, as I said, funds have been released, or some of them, but not all of them, because that means that it's a grant and you need to apply for those funds. So I have actually looked again this morning to see if those applications were available yet. In Illinois, in New York, in Texas, in California, other states I've looked to see if Arizona, I believe I said, and I haven't found them yet, but pay attention to your state sites, because that will be listed there, I'm sure, as soon as those grants are available. But I did find a sample from one state of what that's going to look like. So I'm going to cut over to that just so you can see and write down what information you're going to need. And let me go there for you. And so let me scroll down here. So you see exactly what's going to be on that. So right here, it talks about LEAs and what you're going to need to submit. Complete a cover sheet that includes signature of the district authorized representative, pragmatic fiscal and reporting assurances, information on the use of the ESSER funds, as well as other assurances and certifications. So here's a cover sheet, really simple. So you SEA, authorized representative, your DUNS number, telephone number, email, signature. And then here's a pragmatic part B. Let's go through that, read that. You'll sign it and date it. Now, here's the use of funds. So part C, how exactly are you going to use funds? How exactly are you going to make sure that learning is taking place? What does remote learning take place look like? And what are you going to need for your district, for your students? So not only will you have to check that, but then you'll have to describe all areas marked above in detail. So please attach additional pages as needed. I think you'll probably need additional pages. And then right here, plan for meeting each student's learning needs. So you need to think about that as well. What learning needs when they return to the classroom, and how are you going to meet each student's learning needs? Once again, we're not leaving any child behind, making sure that there's equity, making sure that all students are learning. So that's that. And then other assurances and certifications, you sign that and date it. So that's what the application is going to look like. So you may want to meet right now with teachers, with your school board, et cetera, just to find out exactly what it's going to look like. So you can really have this information completed. That way, when the applications are available, you can complete it and get those funds as quickly as possible. So hopefully that helps you out and what you'll need to know. We're going to talk about charter schools and what they need to know. Small and mid-sized businesses, as you know, received some resources and some help from the federal government as well, and you would qualify as a small and mid-sized business, so make sure you're looking at those funds. Access all available funding streams, and I'll show you those funding streams as well, but I don't think anything's off the table. I really need to be paying attention to all available funding streams. And access funds that CARES provides for a variety of non-education programs as well. So really learning the CARES Act, delving in deeper and finding out, what else can you do with those non-education programs. A great resource that's available for you as well as one of our partners, and that's Charter School Capital. I'm sure many of you had heard of them before. Their website is on the bottom here. But they are giving charter schools a month free of receivables. So if you're receiving or needing funds right now, this is no cost through the end of the year, and it's quick funding as well. So go to charterschoolcapital.org, and I'll show what that looks like as well. So you can complete that information. And let's see. Yeah, so you can go ahead and complete that information. So charterschoolcapital.org. And I don't have that open, but there's the address there that you can take a look at and get that information for them. It's really easy on the right-hand side. It tells you to apply, and it's really a straightforward form as well. So you can go ahead and fill that out. Another great resource for charters is the this site right here, the public charters, and I'm going to cut over to this one for you so you can take a look at this site. I think it has a lot of great information here, and what charter schools need to know specifically. List about the COVID Act, or the CARES Act, sorry, and then on the bottom here it lists all the resources that are available as well. Public schools, you can take a look at this as well, especially for these funding sources, to see what funding sources you may qualify for, especially if you have charter schools under you. So yeah, take a look at that as well. And that's covid.publiccharters.org /legislation. And we do have all these links listed on our blog, so you can easily go to our blog and get these links there. We're going to be sending you emails as well. Thanking you for attending and also giving you the link for our blog so you can go to the blog and get this information. I'm also going to be sending you this government handout, and I really like this because this really clarifies what the waivers are. It's 3 pages long. So what the waivers are and more about the CARES Act. So we have a link for that on our blog as well. So like I said, we'll be sending you that link. Another great funding source is FEMA. Now we have a lot of districts who have applied to FEMA. They, do lots of different things, emergency protective measures, and those include purchasing of food, water, and the purchasing and distribution, as well as disinfection of public facilities. So take a look at that, and that's FEMA.gov/coronavirus. So that's another site that can be able to help you. And another site here, which we love, is Grantmakers Education. Don't know how many of you are familiar with this one, but it has some awesome information as well. And cut over to here real fast. And right here, oops, that's capital funding. Grantmakers, there we go. At least I found the other one. So here is the Grantmakers for Education. And I can click right here on resources and go to COVID-19 and see all the resources that are available. So that's a great resource for you as well. And right here, rapid release funds, tools for educators and learners, tools for nonprofits. So lots of great info there for you. So go there, and once again, that link is listed on our website. And coronavirus, the National Governors Association has lots of great information as well for you. In fact, if you were to go to that site, I can actually go down here and get all the information I need about COVID and exactly what we need to know. So lots of great information on reopening, recovery. So go to this site as well, because there's lots of information here for you. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully it was beneficial. If you have questions at all, type them in the bottom, and we'll go ahead and get those answered for you, or answer those right now. And do me a favor in the questions and answers. Also, from a scale of 1 to 10, go ahead and relate or put down what you think of this webinar and what we could discuss further to help you out in your districts. And I'm going to, in schools, and I'm going to turn the time back over to Jim. Jim, back over to you, sir.
All right, fantastic. Brian, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I know that it's a lot of information out there, so I'm sure that folks can appreciate that someone else did all the research for them rather than just the more that is already currently on everyone's plate. So Brian, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for attending. We hope that this was very informative for you, and we know that even with COVID-19 happening, there's still schools that are operating and in business and making decisions, and if one of those is a decision to make is finding a better solution for your HR and business processes that is strictly K-12 designed, check out our website, heliosed.com. You can learn all about the product offerings that we do have. This is all remote-based, electronic, and for our teams who have to work at home right now, our partners, frankly, their work didn't really skip a beat because they can get all of this here from the internet, from their laptop at home. You can connect with us. We have our YouTube and Vimeo channels where you can see demonstrations of the product, learn more about us. Our webinar sign up for you folks who just love those webinars. We've got another one coming up on Tuesday. It's a deeper dive that's going to be going deeper into our reports module, show you how you can make your own reports. But a really great webinar that's happening next week, just an hour before this time slot, on Friday, is our introduction webinar to going paperless. Just what does it look like for K-12 institutions to go totally paperless for their HR and for businesses? There's a lot that can go into that, and we explain all of that. And again, like Brian mentioned, we're here for you folks. Send us an email. You can get us a call. All our info is also there. Phone numbers are on Helios. And again, like Brian mentioned, please go ahead and type in there, scale from 1 to 10, how helpful this webinar was for you, and just any other things that you'd want to see in future webinars, suggestions for us. And our Q&A has All right, so you can also go ahead, type in any of those questions that you do have regarding anything that Brian had discussed with the CARES Act. Again, on our blog, we have featured all the helpful links that were discussed today, so please make sure that you go to check out our blog here as well. And I do have a couple questions that came in, Brian.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. First question is going to be, what is the turnaround time for applications?
That's a great question. Everything with the CARES Act has been really fast, Jim. So it's been really nice. Even our checks, like I said, direct deposited or mailed to us. And so I think turnaround is going to be really quick. Now the question is, when are those applications going to be available? For every state that's on here today, I actually looked to see if I could find any of those applications today. I found the applications for the SEA, but not the LEAs. So please watch your county sites. May even want to do a Google search for that ESSER fund application for your state directly. But I'm sure, as with everything else, Jim, with the CARES Act, it'll be quick. So they know we need those funds. They know how the desperate times that we're in, so schools can get that application filled out, especially with the information I gave you on what's needed on those applications. Have that written down already. Copy that to the application as soon as you find it and turn that in. And then expect to get those funds pretty quick, although I don't know the exact timing, but I do know everything has been fast.
Gotcha. Okay, Brian, thank you. Another question here, where can we apply for the CARES Act? And again, it sounds like, I guess it's individual state websites.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the individual state or education organizations, the elementary and secondary website that I showed you as well, OESD, so take a look at that. Yeah, so all of that information, we're doing a Google search as I did this morning. So I really, really wanted to give you that resource today on, hey, this is the application, but I did not find them. And if you found them, let us know. Even write those in the Q&A. That way we'll know that those are available. I only found it for one state so far. So yeah, just be aware and be watchful, be proactive.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Brian. Another question here. Can COVID funding be used to adopt a system like Helios? I mean, that's cool. I don't know, Brian, what do we have to say? It sounds like it's not being micromanaged.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Jim. And really, there is no micromanagement. We were speaking to one of our chief of personnel for a large district here, and he said it's not a question of if they go paperless, but when, especially with COVID, it moved that much closer to them, especially being able to do the things they need to do to make sure their teachers are teaching. So whatever you need in place, once again, to make sure your teachers are teaching and students are learning, you need that foundation. If that foundation was crumbling a bit because you weren't able to get authorizations, teachers weren't able to fill out information because they personally need to pick up forms from the district, by all means, without micromanagement, I would imagine, as long as you can quantify it and say, give the reason why you would need it, I would imagine you can use those funds for it. Especially professional development as well. That's another area that teachers need, especially since they're not used to teaching remotely. So yeah, there's lots of different areas you can use, especially going paperless might be another option to take a look at.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Brian. And at least one more question here. How is E-rates affected by COVID funding stipulations?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Jim. And E-rate, they extended the time for the application. So that was convenient. They extended that by 35 days. That time is over, though. That was for April 29th. So hopefully your CTOs, CIOs, information officers got that information out. But really, it's an appendage to. Although those funds weren't extended, you can still use the funding for the resources that you need to make sure remote learning can take place. So that includes the hotspots and everything you need, Chromebooks or anything else that your students need to be successful and teachers need to be successful.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Cool. Perfect. Well, Brian, that about does it for us. So again, thank you so much for doing all this research and sharing all of it today. And from Partnership Success here at Helios, Jim and Brian, again, we thank you all very much for being here. And come back and hang out with us again at our next 2 webinars this Tuesday, and as well just an hour before this time next week. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jim. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. If you have any questions,
awesome weekend too.
Yeah, exactly. Friday. Woo! So if you have any questions, feel free to type those in on the bottom, and we'll wait around here for a few moments just to see if there's any additional questions that you have for us. Yeah, if you do, go ahead and type those in. We'll wait for a few seconds. Or call us as well, Jim, if you can flash our information again so they have our email addresses. And there's our email addresses right there, so feel free to reach out to us, ask any questions at all. Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.